Welcome to New Game Plus, a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name's Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 284. And we don't talk about ROMs much on our podcast for obvious reasons.
Ooh.
We don't even know what they are.
I'm telling.
But in the news this past week, a popular ROM site owner decided to fight Nintendo in court.
Oh my goodness. Brave.
Not only, or stupid, because not only did he on his website charge a paid subscription to access the ROMs, so he made money off of it, but he also chose to represent himself in court.
Guys,
he was going to be his own lawyer.
This is a fake article. You've been getting Onion articles
Nintendo
lately.
Nintendo lawyers.
This is real.
Nolan, exactly how you would assume it would from that information.
Hey, this content's not mine. I didn't make it. You're going to pay me for it. I'm suing the companies that made it, though, and I'm winning.
And we're not talking he was hosting, Super Mario 1. This guy had Switch ROMs and modern stuff on his site. Not
Did
like
the judge laugh?
Like retro stuff where Nintendo's kind of like, we're Nintendo so we still care, but like no big deal. But like
that's really funny.
Stuff.
That's really funny.
Like, did he think like he was gonna get up there and be like, I'm gonna say things that they've never heard before? Like, I know that this has been in litigation. Like, people have talked about this for a long time. I've got it though. I'm gonna go by myself, and the things that I'm gonna say is gonna make that judge be like, "You are right."
He definitely thought that, because you wouldn't do that if you didn't think something insane like
Nolan,
that.
The details of this story are so funny. You got to read the article. I'll send it to you.
I can't believe it.
This was his primary source of income.
Who paid this person?
Now
first
that
of all?
But he wasn't even making that much money. I think you would have made more money having like a normal minimum wage job. And now that he lost this case, he's like just living on unemployment.
Yeah. So you just gave it away. So he did lose this case. He lost fairly bigly. $2.1 million is what he has to pay now. So.
Guys.
Really, his defense, Nolan, was I didn't put these on the site. Because it's like
but he did.
But he did?
Yeah.
So he lied.
He uploaded most of the ROMs himself.
So what did we learn?
I know.
I didn't learn anything because I knew this since I was 8 years old.
Like, even if you are against the current copyright stuff, and even if you believe in the preservation of older video games and stuff like that, there's a right way to to sell the Cs, and there's a wrong way. He chose all the wrong ways.
Yes, I can't believe this. I want to read about it, but at the same time, I'm good. Because that's just a dumb person. That's just the dumb person.
Right.
And that's fine.
Well, and you talked about the lessons we learned. The major lesson is that no matter how big you might think you are never big enough to survive the attack of a gigantic monster such as Nintendo. They will chew you up, spit you out, and raze your city to the ground, and nothing will be left standing. Like in our retro game of the week, which makes sense this time.
Yeah.
Rampage.
Overview.
Rampage Jackson is a UFC fighter. Has nothing to do with this.
Just to clear that up from the start.
Yeah, I know that some people were going to comment. I could see them rolling in already.
Yeah. They probably found us on Spotify
from Joe Rogan.
Looking for Rampage Jackson podcasts.
Yeah, looking for Joe Rogan, being like, I wonder if Rampage Jackson has one. Rampage, a retro gaming podcast. Let me check this out.
They also could have been looking for the blockbuster hit of 2018. And
yes,
here as well.
Starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Starring Rampage Jackson.
And Rampage Jackson was also in there.
And Rampage.
Rampage is an arcade game that came out in 1986, developed by Midway. It was also published by Midway. And you play as the monsters. Did you guys see Gorilla versus Kong?
Versus himself? He's just punching himself?
Yeah. Did y'all watch that movie? It came out last year. It was a really big deal.
I'm picturing a normal sized gorilla. like scurrying up King Kong's leg, pulling hairs one at a time, making him really mad.
Did not. I'm not the biggest kaiju fan of all time.
Kaiju? What is that?
Yeah, like
You weeb.
that's the monster genre, right?
Oh, okay.
Like Japanese monsters and stuff.
Yeah, Japanese monster. Big, yeah. Godzilla.
Big monster kaiju. Okay. Kenny?
I don't know. I watch a lot of stuff.
You don't know.
I watched some King Kong movie recently, but
yes,
maybe it was Kong Skull Island. Is that a different one?
That's a different one. Yes.
I don't. They just make so many of the things over and over, and I get mad and then want to tear it all down.
Okay. Well, I didn't either, but it was like a huge. It was a big thing on TikTok. I think people were like, "Who's gonna win?" or whatever. That's game.
That's why I didn't see it.
No, you play in this game as one of 3 kaiju monsters: Lizzie, George, or Ralph. And the point of this game is to destroy things. The developers of this game wanted to make a game that did not follow the conventional style of arcade titles at the time. I actually think they didn't even want this to be an arcade game. I don't know what console they had their eyes on, but it did come out on that platform, and they specifically avoided like play left to right, rank up a high score, lose a life, start over, and instead you play as the quote unquote bad guy, which at the time that's a pretty unique concept. I have played Rampage before, not this one. I've played the N64 one, which is not a port. This game was ported to everything, but this was like a later entry in the series. So I was familiar with the concept, but I never played the arcade one.
Right. So because the arcade one came out in 1986, and it was in the arcade, and so when it was ported to things like the Spectrum, the Commodore 64, the Atari, the Apple II,
all of those era of things.
And so
you got a DOS release. Pretty much it went to everything.
And then it had multiple sequels and the movie adaptation, which we've already talked about. But yeah, it's a 3-player arcade game, so you don't. I mean, you could play by yourself as one of those characters, or the 3 of us could show up at an arcade, could each take a monster, and could play the game together.
Yeah. Too bad we couldn't have done
this.
That.
This needs to happen, because that sounds
no, it doesn't.
Good times.
Well, it could. If we were to do that, who would be what monster based off of our personalities and appearance?
I mean,
is easy.
Oh, Lizzie or Easy?
No, I was literally trying to say Easy, and then I accidentally said Izzy. I don't know why.
So Kenny's Lizzie.
No.
Okay. Then you tell me, Kenny, because I don't know.
You're Lizzie.
Yeah.
I'm Ralph.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dustin's George.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Kenny. You don't have to say any more. The whole podcast, you're done. This was an arcade game that I played in the arcade.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me too. I have distinct memories of this one.
Distinct memories of this one. I would always play Ralph the werewolf, though, just because wolves were always cool, especially for young kids, young boys. Wolves and werewolves, and so that's what I would always go to. But for the most part, they operate the same. We can talk about some of those differences in gameplay, but it was certainly one of my favorites to play in the arcade.
Oh, I hated this game as a kid.
Okay.
So different perspectives going in.
Oh, because I mean, two main reasons. I didn't like being the bad guy. Like the whole premise of I'm just going to run around and like ruin everything just felt terrible to me. I was a little bit of a goody two shoes.
Right.
Yeah. And there's friendly fire. And so anytime I played this game, like playing with a cousin or something, they're punching me and they're better at the game than me. And I'm just like, leave me alone. This is not fun. And so I hated it.
What animal fighting game did we play on the podcast? What's that called?
Does it have something to do with blood? Or is it another one that's just a one-word thing?
Rage? Primal Rage.
Primal Rage.
I just did that. Okay.
Bloody.
I always get these two games mixed up.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Rampage, animals
fight. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Primal.
different because Primal Rage is straight up a fighting game.
Very different
monsters. But this one, you're fighting the humans in the buildings is what you're doing. And so it was one of my favorites to play in the arcade. I didn't spend many quarters on it. I didn't stay there for a long time because there wasn't a story involved really. In fact, Nolan, we usually do story and overview. Do you have anything scripted out for story?
Nah, I was gonna make something up, and then I decided that was too much work.
I mean, there's a little bit of story on like how these characters came to be. Lizzie jumped into a lake that was full of like
radioactive
water waste, yeah, and then she turned into a monster. George was inventing like a mega vitamin, and I don't know, it worked too well or something. And then I forget Ralph's story.
Ralph's was a food additive.
Oh yeah, it was food
gone
he
wrong.
was trying to make a good sausage and made it too good.
So a really good story here.
Yeah, I love that story.
Yeah, top notch.
Top 10.
Gameplay.
Each level is a scene. You've already described. You're not moving left to right and scrolling. You're not moving up and down and scrolling. Yeah. What you see is where you are. And at first that might throw you off. You might think, okay, I just clear these buildings. I'm going to move off to the side. But no, that ends that stage, and then you begin a new stage. Yes. And your purpose on each and every stage from the first to the 800th level is to climb up buildings, to punch holes in them, and to knock them down. That is ultimately your goal, while collecting as many points as possible.
Yeah, you also want to eat people.
That collects points, yes.
Yeah,
you want to punch,
and gives you some life.
You want to punch.
You want to punch a helicopter.
You want to take turns. You want to punch a helicopter. You want to avoid the dangerous things. Yes, you want to do all of those smaller items, but they all fall into the larger item that I just described.
Worst thing ever.
What is?
I don't know. It's mystery.
For me to know and you to find out.
This style of progression in this game is real bad. And let me tell you why. Because Kenny was trying to play devil's advocate and give you a bunch of different things that you're doing. Please. You're racking up a high score, which is what you do in the arcade, but this thing is the most unfair game of all time, and you're not even going to get to see the later stages, which are the same thing anyways. What is that?
You could quarter your way into those later stages.
Sure, but you would get nothing out of it because the stage is the same with some very minor tweaks.
I'm going to make a guess. Nolan's not going to like this game. I'm just going to...
Oh, I'm not even...
That is a guess.
Yeah, I'm revealing it. And this is because I'm mad. I came into this episode a little mad. I played it a little this morning before just to see.
Yeah,
he's rampaging already.
I'm rampaging, and I do not like the idea that, hey, let's make a game that is different than all the other games. Cool, sure, be innovative, but it is the same as all the other games except worse because there's nothing cool later in the game.
Goodness.
See, I love how different this game is. I think the let's not follow normal protocol was a really, really good choice for what they were trying to make for this arcade game that's a multiplayer friend experience in the 80s.
Let me be clear. I think it's very cool to be the bad guy and to be on the other side of the video game where you're destroying and you have no limitations other than you can kill people, you can destroy buildings, and that's the point. I love that concept. I don't have a problem with the concept. I have a problem with the execution and what
you have a problem with the fact that you can't dodge bullets. That there's no.
Don't get me. We'll get there. But there's just no game outside of like one thing. The first stage is all you need to play to experience the gameplay.
I mean, you say that, but there are 768 possible stages for you to play if you want.
I understand that. That's an impressive number, but look deeper.
They're looping. It's not all unique stages.
There's 120 something unique stages.
Well, but
Unique, Kenny.
Unique.
Yeah,
I agree
mean,
with
unique, like literally unique. They're different from each other. I'm not trying to say they're not all the same. This game is very samey.
Let Dustin back me
destroy
up.
buildings.
Well, I won't be able to without Kenny's permission because he is the master today.
He's gonna defend.
Sometimes I'm in a mood and nothing to do about
Kenny
it.
talk, Kenny? Is he allowed to now?
I guess.
Okay.
You may proceed with our podcast.
Thank you. All right, listen. I agree. It is a lot of the same. There are the most minor changes to a few stages. You get a puddle of water that you shouldn't fall into on one. The building heights might differ. The enemy spawns might differ. On one stage, you might have a tank that shows up. On another, you might have a trolley. On another, you might have 3 helicopters. But the gameplay doesn't fundamentally change from the first stage to, again, the 800th, or Kenny's going to be pedantic. It's maybe not 800, it's 700, whatever. But the gameplay is fundamentally the same from the first stage to the very last.
All right. So if that's the case, let's see if it's fun. Well,
oh my gosh.
Wait, okay. The controls are fine, other than to climb a building, you have to be like perfectly in line with the building in order to start
pixel
climbing.
Perfect, but
I say
you
perfectly pretty loosely. You have to be next to the building to do it, on ground with your feet on the ground. That's fine. You can jump in this game, so it would be cool if you could jump from building and grab onto the other building, but that's not a mechanic. You have, in order to scale a building, you have to be flat feet on the ground and then go up. And some of the buildings are super tall, so like that's a flaw, but the controls themselves are fine. Breaking a building is the same every time, and there's no real fun to be had there. I'm sorry. I wish like
you're not gonna say that there's something not satisfying about like
on
just
the first
punching
stage
and these giant holes and just
Okay.
destruction.
Yes, on the first stage. Yes, that's
okay.
fine.
Good. At least you said that, because it is like initially you come in and just get to destroy. That's a lot of fun, and especially if the three of us or three of anybody were doing it together, it's even more fun. But yes, I agree that the diminishing returns are there. I don't know how to use that in a sentence, but I will say, no, I do think that you can jump and grab onto a building while you're still in the air.
How?
I think that you can. I just think you jump and then you hold up. You have to hit it correctly. Like and I'm not wrong. You just can't be in the falling animation. You have to have intentionally jumped from one building to the next.
Okay,
but
so I missed that.
There are. This game is not one of like exploration. It's not what you're doing in this game is like a lot of these early arcade games in the sense that you are trying to point max. That is the fun here. And so if you're not a point maxer, and there's probably correct terminology for that I don't know, but if you're not trying to min max on not Chad.
A Chad.
If you're not trying to point max, then you're going to quickly lose interest in this game. But if you are trying to point max, there's a lot of things that you can do to maximize the points that you're gaining.
Yes. And you'll also bash your head into the wall because the projectiles on the screen, unfair, friends. Very unfair.
They're fine.
Arcade, I know that was the point, and I'm being like whiny, and I whined the entire first place, so I don't even watch it. But like it's super unfair, like quickly. So it's going to steal all your money. And like I said, for no payoff. Like you get hit so much, and they give you a lot of life, they do, but not enough to get past like 4 stages without having to get a credit. Like it's ridiculous how many projectiles are on the screen. There's no strategy. There's no strategy.
Yeah, it really is designed that you're needing to eat some of those things. And that's part of like the character. You're these giant creatures. Yeah, you're going to have to just soak up some of this damage. But it really is sort of just this veiled attempt at making sure that it's not a game that you can like beat. They could have designed it completely differently where it was more skill based and there were less projectiles and you had to learn the sequences and really try and dodge stuff and whatever else, but they weren't going for that. This is not a I don't know, this is not that type of game. This is just a like fun social jump in and like have fun, maybe rack up a high score kind of experience.
But I do have a rebuttal to this because I do think there's a finite number of army men on a stage. So once you clear them, there's no more that are going to spawn.
Yeah.
And so if you're point maxing or going after them first without just trying to destroy the building, which is the best way to get the points, is to eat as many people and things that you can, the healthy things. They only shoot at 45-degree angles, and they can only shoot one bullet each on screen at a time. So like, if you're watching, you can dodge a lot of the bullets, not all of the bullets.
Sure, but yes, you're gonna get hit some.
Oh, you're going to get hit some, which I like. I liked this actually in that terrible Godzilla game that we played, the Godzilla and Mothra game, and that you're going to get hit. Yes, you're a massive monster.
Okay, y'all are making a really good point. For a case for how many projectiles are on the screen. That's a good point. How far can you get before you die because they're shooting at you because you're giant? Okay, I'll give them that. You're right.
But it does that sneaky, disgusting thing that some arcade games do. I don't know, that your health, even if you're not being hit, is depleting based on the time. It stops at a certain point when you have like a certain sliver left.
Yeah.
But if you could stand there not being hit by anything and it's still depleting because they want your quarters, and
I mean, there's a line though. People are waiting to play. You can't.
I didn't realize that. That's shady.
Yeah, that's
they could have
gross.
gotten away with not that here because you were gonna die anyways. Like that's a given.
Doesn't that suck?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah,
suck.
that makes me.
Makes me wonder which arcade games did that, and I'm unaware of. I don't trust anyone anymore.
What if in Street Fighter, like your health is automatically just depleting?
No, I trust Capcom and I trust Mortal Kombat, but I don't know about anything else.
So you've got hazards throughout the game. One of the things that I like is that in a lot of the windows that you're punching or the holes that you're punching, there are either helpful items or harmful items. And so some of them are obvious. If you punch a cactus, it's gonna take health away from you. But if what's a healthy thing? I don't know off the top of my head. Turkey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Turkey.
If you punch food, it's gonna be healthy.
Yeah.
But there are some that start off harmful that if you wait become helpful. And I thought that was really cool.
Like the toaster.
That's
you gotta
one
wait for the toast to be done.
Yeah, there's a toaster that if you hit right away, you
great.
get electrocuted. But if you wait, it will pop up with toast, and then it's food that you can eat, and it can regain a little bit of health. I thought that was kind of creative.
Yeah, I like that too.
There's also kind of fun things like each character having like a nemesis human character that they can look for and that their character can grab and get extra points, sort of based on character relationships. And a few other like fun tone things too. I know I talked about the story and sort of laughed about these character stories, but everything from like the game creators using their own pictures as the like faces, which is kind of fun, to when you die, you not dying but reverting to your human form, like shrunken down, and because you were this giant creature, sort of Hulk style, you're naked and like scurry off the screen, and that's super funny. There's some really fun sort of just like tone elements here to them.
Yeah.
I don't know, that kind of know the kind of game they were going for and made it big and cartoony and fun.
Yeah.
I really do feel like we missed out on a big point and portion of this game by not being in an arcade, all three of us at a cabinet. Like, that's a different story. I mean, I would still have the same issues that I have with the game, but at least I would be laughing my head off because we'd just be playing a game together. So, and this happens every time we play an arcade game. We mentioned this. It's a big aspect of the gameplay that just isn't there for us.
Well, I would say that it's a big difference between playing it in the arcade in 1986 and playing it in your home by yourself in 2021.
Sure, yeah.
It's an aging factor considerably.
Aged.
This game's aged badly.
Solid start.
Yeah, listen. 86 is okay. 86 isn't as old as I thought because there are some games that we played on the podcast that came out like the same year or around the same year that were pretty good and like are still playable, right? And we've played one in the 70s. Is that true? We played a game from the 70s?
Played a couple, yeah.
Okay.
It's also nice that we got an arcade title from this year, because you look at similar types of gear, like this ported to the Atari and the Atari 2600. And so there's versions of this game that are absolutely worthless graphically, but this one looked pretty nice.
Yes. Well, I think the character models look excellent.
Yes.
And
they're the big, chunky, thick
shadows everywhere.
Detailed shadows, facial expressions.
Yes.
Either when their health is lower or when they bite dynamite, fire will blow out of their mouth. Like really cool.
When they look at you like breaking the fourth wall. Like, come on, what are you doing? It's so funny.
Great, but the rest is phoned in. The backdrop.
The rest is not the best.
The backdrop is passable as a city. Sure, that's a city. Black squares, empty holes for windows. And then the buildings you're smashing, they're buildings, but they're also just squares with like, they're not the best. So I think the character models are top tier, and I think the rest is like, eh.
Agreed, but there is some attention to detail there that you would not even pick up on unless you play for a long time or are told about it by someone else. And one of those things that really impressed me, and you'll have to go back and see, is that on the stages where you do have helicopters that show up on the screen, before they show up on the screen, they will be on that back layer, shadowed, flying across the sky. And once they clear one side of the screen, they show up in the forefront on that same side.
On the others.
I like
That's kind of cool.
Really cool.
I like
it.
I mean, that wasn't the only thing about this game that was a focus on adding background animation to the game. In fact, if you read about the development of this game some, it's kind of interesting that the desire for more interactive background animations is actually kind of what led to them making this game initially. They were like, how can we animate a background that's cool? And the answer was, well, rectangles disappearing is a really easy, like, computational background to make. What can we do with a bunch of rectangles? And those became buildings and then monsters, and the rest is history. Kind of interesting.
But you're right. They spent the majority of their assets here on those character models, which they should.
They should have.
They should.
Yeah.
And
that's the whole point.
Yeah.
And that's what drew me to it in the first place, was those big chunky monsters
on the side of the cabinet. You're like, oh, I get to be them. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, dude. And they look good in game. And still looking back today, I just think the artwork there is good. But yeah, the rest lacks some. Nolan, you noticed it in your first play. There's no music.
Yeah.
Which you get in the 80s on the arcade. You probably don't want music because it's gonna hurt.
I mean, I wanted music, I'll say that, but I think it's unfair of me to just be like, oh, this is garbage, there's no music, because it was the 80s cabinet, whatever. But the sound effects of like the bullets and everything and the explosions were loud also and got on my nerves like pretty quickly. Yeah. So maybe I would have liked, I said in the first play that I would have liked a heavy metal soundtrack, and I think that'd be funny to have that.
I would imagine on some of the ports there's some kind of soundtrack. I don't know if I've ever played an NES title that doesn't have any kind of music. So
they exist, I bet.
I'd have to check into it, but obviously we played the arcade version, and no music, only sound effects. So, we said it was already ported to so many different things.
Everything, and then additional games made on in the series in the future, which speaks to popularity. Yeah, a whole bunch, and we mentioned it, but they went so far as to make a big blockbuster movie.
There's no
based on this IP. I'm not saying it's good or it's not. I'm just saying there was enough popularity there and enough familiarity there for them to acknowledge it.
I started watching it this morning.
Oh, really? I love The Rock. I really do.
I thought about it.
Fan.
Hey, okay.
Don't say
I love
it's
it
good.
so far.
No,
I love it so far.
Do
No,
you?
No. Listen. I don't know. I'm only about a half hour in, but it's Dwayne.
Yeah,
being Dwayne
best,
and it seems like so far that they are fully aware of what kind of movie they're making.
I might be down for that then.
And so, like, already I've seen a gorilla flip off Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Okay. All right.
Like, I think they know what they're doing, and they're
man.
being silly with it, and it's not going to be like a great movie,
Yeah.
but it might be a really fun and funny movie.
Dwayne being Dwayne is a good. That's good. And then two, self-awareness is also good. You'll have to finish it and let me know.
Yeah, I will.
In GP Watch Party, yeah.
Hey, I was surprised because it should be garbage, but it might be fun. And the animations, the CGI stuff is really good so far. So like, this could be fully aware, funny, and over the top. I don't know. Yeah, in GP Watch Party, let's do it this week. There is a remade version of the cabinet that Arcade 1-Up did, I think, back in 2018. And so they're not still making them, but you can purchase like secondhand for around $500. It's about 4 feet high if you want to actually play an arcade style. But if you want an original cabinet,
here we go.
The cheapest I could find was $4,395.
Arcade cabinets are getting into that antique territory, like more so than just a game. It's like, okay, this is ancient, and there are like 5 of them.
Oh yeah, and finding ones that run and actually
work,
play the game, and everything else. There's a lot there. There's a reason that those are high-end sort of hobbyist collector item.
And before we move out of aged, and I know this is slightly out of order, but I do think it's important one more time to bring up. It's just not being able to play this game in the arcade with friends changes it drastically. It doesn't fix all the problems. It doesn't make the backgrounds any better. It doesn't add music.
Just removes the experience out of it. And you have to look at the game raw.
And when you're creating an arcade game back in the 80s, you're creating it in an arcade, thinking that's going to last forever, that people are always going to be here playing.
Yes.
And trying to recreate that here in 2021 is one of the most detrimental aging factors to arcade titles. So when we talk about arcade titles on the podcast, we are always doing it retrospectively, saying, how is it playing today? And so that has painted our conversation thus far, and will continue to paint it as we give our final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. I say flip off. Do you say flick off? I think I grew up saying flick off. It is flip off, right?
There were kids growing up that said flick off, and I wanted to punch them.
You wanted to flip them off?
I wanted to flip them off.
Flick off?
Flick you off.
But why is it flip? Because it's like flipping it up?
Because you're flipping your finger up.
You're flipping the bird.
Because it's also flicking. Like you can flick it up.
No, this is a flick.
No, if you actually hit somebody, it's a flick.
But presenting is a flip.
Well, I said it correctly. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Nolan, I think you have the most negative experience and things to say. So how about you start and be real with it?
Okay. I think the game is trash. And I know.
I was right to start with you.
I know that there are arcade people out there that are like ready to attack. I get it. And I understand that I'm wrong in like writing it off because it's we've already said it. It's an arcade cabinet, so it's a little unfair to like use that as an aging factor, but it is. And when you take that away, you're forced to look at the game raw and as it is. And I think that they wanted to go for this unique experience, and the concept is unique, and the first stage is awesome. Every stage after that's the same thing, and that's not much of a game. I have a huge problem with that. I got frustrated. I never wanted to return to this week. I don't think you need to play it. I think, no, of course not. No New Game Plus. No.
That's one no. Kenny, you go next.
Yeah, so this game is absolutely magical. Playing the bad guy, big, bright, fun, running around, wreaking havoc, punching your buddy in the face when he climbs up on the building and eats the turkey leg before you do. Like, everything about it is magical. in 1986.
Thought so.
In 2021, you already mentioned it, Dustin, but it just is a much harder pill to swallow. I think this
radioactive pill. Something there about
it's a mega vitamin, and you don't wanna swallow it. If for some reason you can find this game like in a retro arcade and go take some friends, you're gonna have a great time.
Maybe.
I think this is a classic capital C type game. It's a relic, but not in like the bad way, but in the like it deserves to be known about and people be familiar and nostalgic for it kind of game. But it's not the one you're going to want to pick up and entertain yourself with in 2021. You want that multiplayer, you want that arcade vibe. Everything that you guys have already pointed out is totally valid. So, no new game plus from me. Opposite perspective, I think it's a great one. It's just not, it doesn't have legs.
I had a very similar thing to say, and feel. I think Kenny and I are probably right in line here. Like, I think it is a must play if you can time travel back to the late 80s and play with some friends in the arcade. Like, an absolute must play. But it's 2021, and not only can we not play it together in the arcade, but just arcade titles largely age a lot worse than home consoles in some
cases.
In a lot of cases, in a lot of ways, and this is one of those. But I also see where Nolan's coming from. I also have those nostalgia glasses of like I actually got to experience it in the arcade, so I know that it's fun. And arcade titles were meant to be short amounts of fun. Now, more than one stage, I'll give you that. It's supposed to be more than one stage amount of fun, but it's only if you can keep someone there at the arcade for at that console at that cabinet for 5 to 10 minutes, you've done your job.
Yes.
And that's
and during those 5 to 10 minutes, they've taken a fair share of your quarters on this one.
Right.
By design, which again is always a hard balance. Like we get it. It's what they needed, but like shady too.
So I loved this game back when I played it in the arcade, but I do not give it my vote for New Game Plus status now. Watch the movie instead. And that means
maybe
Rampage is not New Game Plus certified. And that hurts me.
We're going to get destroyed. And I don't care.
No.
I don't care.
Well, let's see. We had many people write in this week. We'll include some of those thoughts. 714 on YouTube voted one way or another. Nice. 63% of them said yes, it's worth playing today, so the majority. 14% said no, go play something else, and 23% have never played it before.
Okay. High numbers of people that are familiar.
Yeah. Again, always going to get those skewed numbers there when someone's voting, but sure. Mm-hmm. More to the point and more clearly would be some of our community thoughts. And so Big Toe Ooze said, played loads of the... What? You like that name?
I like that name,
That game is hilarious.
I think that's their real name. Played loads of the 64 version as a kid with a friend and loved that game. Played the NES version this week solo, and it was my first time playing this version. It's got clunky controls, rough music, etc. There's music.
No Ralph. Come on.
No
NES.
Ralph on the NES.
That's
an instant kill. These are the things that made this game simply not fun to play this week. If you want to have fun playing Rampage, play the 64 version co-op with a friend. No NGP status.
But that's a sequel, right? Like that's
it's not the same game.
Okay,
and
play
even
game.
And even then, they're saying the same thing we did. Play it socially.
I will say that I used to rent the 64 one a lot, and I had a lot of fun with it because I think they improved on a lot of the things that I had an issue with.
Sure. Super Gamer Guy said, Rampage is the ideal type of arcade game. It's fun in short bursts and has engaging multiplayer, which is all that you needed back in 1986. However, in 2021, it falls a bit flat. The levels themselves are simple. The formula can get stale when playing several levels in one sitting. And when coupled with the stiff movement of your character, it can make for a dull experience in long sessions. However, this game also has some charm to it. The character designs are endearing, the sound designs make every punch feel like it has weight to it, and the crumbling building animation makes the players feel satisfied with their path of destruction. I had a good time putting a couple of hours into the game, when I broke that gameplay up into several smaller sessions. I would definitely recommend this game to early arcade enthusiasts or retro gamers with half an hour to kill, but I can't say that I would give it NGP.
Ideal arcade game is interesting. Very quickly, what do y'all think is the ideal arcade experience? For me, Mortal Kombat. I think fighting game is like the perfect genre for arcade, and it's ridiculous, and you can have a lot of fun really quickly.
Nope. For me, I've got $1 worth of quarters.
Yeah.
I feel like the game is fun, but I also feel like if I've learned the game and
really
come back
quickly.
to it with $1 again, that I'm going to get farther because I've gotten better at it.
Which is
I like X-Men.
okay.
Nice. That's a good choice.
And I don't think people necessarily agree with me, but Sunset Riders.
Ooh, so
me.
good.
I mean,
Enough
That
of a
game
story.
game.
is
Enough
good.
of a story. You can play it solo, but play it with a crew too.
So
Man,
good.
that game. But great question. Lieutenant Pat X said, I grew up with the European C64 version of Rampage. Yes, back then there were different versions for Europe and USA with huge gaps in quality.
Yeah.
Unaware of its arcade counterpart, it was one of those games me and my friends only played together because alone it got boring fast. The archaic and simple game design works well with multiple people joining in. Without company, it falls apart fast. I got fond memories, enjoyed revisiting it for 30 minutes, but definitely no NGP.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so
see,
I'm
I
seeing
think
a theme.
we're right on here.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So people aren't gonna be mad at you, Nolan.
Oh, someone will, but
For sure.
it's fine. It's fine.
And then finally, Michael wrote in an email and said, as a kid in the early 90s, I lived in a small town in Illinois called Hinckley, and the town is in the game. And one of the makers, Jeff Nauman, has an arcade storefront on the main road in town. During the town's Fall Fest, he would display this arcade cabinet to play for free. This and NES gave me my love for gaming. I did play a little this week, and I got some old nostalgia. It's okay graphics for the arcade only. NES is not as good graphic-wise. I give the arcade Rampage New Game Plus. And P.S. This game, Kenny, is better with sequels.
Do you think that store owner
Those
regretted
things
it
are-
when he saw how long the line was to play it? He's like,
No, man.
Let me turn the
What
quarters
if-
back on.
But what a great memory. Growing
yeah,
up in a
that's
town
great.
where you go to the, town fair? What was it? Yeah, Town Fall Fest and play.
So cool.
That's so cool.
In fairness, having your town be part of this game isn't as high a threshold as it sounds like, because like at all major city ever is represented in this game, and you get to destroy it.
There are a lot. For now, we're
lot.
going to set aside Rampage. Again, go watch the movie with me. But we'll put that to the side, and we're going to randomly select our next retro game of the week, which we have a retro master list. It's expansive. It's grand. It's great. It's viewer submitted games that are 15 years old or older. We've got, I don't remember, but close to 2,000 games in there right now. From that retro master list, we are randomly selecting what game we're going to be playing for the next 2 weeks.
Ooh.
We'll tell you why in just a moment. There's a theme song that I'm not remembering right now, but hopefully one of you would be able to remember.
Easy.
From this game that is connected to a television show of the same title
Oh, I got
that
you.
was popular in the early 1990s.
I got you.
This game came out for the Super Nintendo in 1993. It's a side-scrolling action game, and it is called Inspector Gadget.
Dun, 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 dun. Inspector Gadget. Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
didn't like
was
Inspector
right there.
Gadget. I don't know why. I know, Kenny. I know. It's like, I don't know. I always thought it was so cringy. Like, even for a
What?
cartoon, it was cringy. And
No, it's such a generational gap speaking.
I was just too cool
Gadget,
for it, even as a kid.
Exactly. Inspector Gadget, Darkwing Duck. Like, man, these were
Oh, that's a
staples
different-
for me. I know.
Captain Planet.
Just naming Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Childhood was just great.
Okay, so Inspector Gadget, I certainly watched some of it. Never was a massive fan, but I don't know if I've ever played the game. He's got gadgets.
He's got lots of gadgets, a lot of silly
So-
ones. I feel like this is Kenny's alley. He owns this
It's
alley.
right up his alley.
Yeah.
So grab your gadgets and play Inspector Gadget for the Super Nintendo along with us this week.
Join us on Discord, please, please, please. We're trying to get partner for some reason.
We're still
go
not there.
No, we're still not there, even though we're eligible. Discord
Yeah.
is shutting us down, but we need your support. Go to ngppodcast.com and click join us on Discord.
You could also hop on patreon.com/NGP podcast if you want to support what we're doing and bringing you fun retro gaming content week after week after week. like our wonderful set of producers who help support us. Amarlian, Austin, Ben, Bethany Fox, Carrie, Dan the Man, Francesca, Corey, Maxima, Nawel, Secret Duck of Evermore, Shauna, Thomas, Unbedavable, Wardanis, William, and Zion. As well as our newest producer level supporter, Anthony. Thank you for
Soprano
joining us. Yeah, welcome to the club. And of course, want to say a double big, extra huge shout out to our growing list of director level supporters as well. These guys go way above and beyond. Antonin, Garlisle, Brojim, and Jordan. Thank you so very much.
Why did you decide not to go in alphabetical order there on the director list?
Because those are the order that they hopped on to being directors with us.
Fair enough. There's rhyme to your reason.
Yeah.
As
always.
Guys, Patreon.
Yes.
We do what we do for a hobby. Now we'll do it full time if y'all want us to. That's completely on y'all. So Bill Gates or whoever is listening, help some brothers out. But
Reese.
But we like doing this. We do it as a hobby, but we decided about a year in to open up a Patreon so that if there were viewers that wanted to support us financially, as little as $1 they could.
Yes.
We set some goals at the time and really projected out there saying, hey, let's put a few crazy ideas just in case there are this continues and people support us. And anyways,
things we didn't ever expect to actually happen.
No,
right.
Not at all.
When we talk like stretch goals, wild dream kind of stuff, some of these were in that territory.
Within the past couple of weeks, we broke our 2 final goals.
Insane. Wait, we have to come up with new ones now.
Crazy.
1, we have to come up with new ones. 2, because of the level of directors, the number of directors we have, this can drastically and quickly change.
Yeah. It's all over the map.
It fluctuates. But we've expressed our gratitude. Thank you. But there are some really exciting and cool things that we're going to be doing now and that we're going to be able to do that is outside of our weekly podcast. 2 of the things that we just hit. 1, this year, as long as we're able to physically be there, we're going to try to be in a expo together. Our first like retro game con we're going to try to go to, and
huge.
Where you'll be able to be there if you want to physically meet us, hang out with us. That's our plan.
Yes.
And then, because we hit our second and final goal, I'm going to fly down to the guys, and we're going to spend a week together creating NGP-related content.
Oh, do you know how much content that could be?
Dude.
Too much.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be so much fun. It's going to be the funnest. I can't wait.
It's going to be the funnest. Because we live in different places, so we haven't really been able to do this since... we've done it a couple of times throughout, but it's really only been episodes, not additional content. But we're going to create tons of content for you in person. And we'll have some more goals up on Patreon soon. So again, visit there. And we said we're going to be playing Inspector Gadget for 2 weeks because 3 of our supporters, Garlisle, Shauna, and Antonin, are going to be doing something special next week.
This is big.
So stay tuned for next week's episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. You can follow us on all of our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Make sure you listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. This episode, as always, was edited and produced by our good friend Tom Tate. Join us next week, in a couple weeks, as we play Inspector Gadget. Until then, I'm still George.
I am Inspector Gadget.
I'm your worst nightmare.
We could have done the 3 monsters. And this has been New Game Plus.